The road was quiet, only the sound of the wind moving dust across the dry ground. A human traveler named Daniel walked slowly, his boots heavy with dirt. He had been moving from one small alien village to another, looking for trade, food, and a place to rest. The land was harsh and kindness was rare. As he walked past an old broken gate, he heard a soft voice. At first he thought it was the wind, but then he stopped. The voice was weak, trembling, almost begging. "I can clean your boots, human, if you give me food." Daniel turned, his eyes narrowed as he looked at the source of the voice. There, kneeling in the mud, was a young alien girl. Her clothes were torn, her skin pale. Her hands were dirty, her eyes sunken from hunger. She could barely lift her head. For a moment, Daniel thought it was some kind of trick. In these lands, bandits often use desperate children as bait, but when he stepped closer, he saw her shaking hands and thin arms. She was truly starving. The girl looked up at him with big golden eyes. Her lips cracked, her voice hoarse. "Please, just until you are full, I will serve, I will work, I will clean, just one meal." Daniel felt a knot in his chest. He was not a rich man. He had only a little bread in his bag, enough for himself for the night. Sharing would mean he might go hungry later, but leaving her here in the mud seemed worse. He crouched down, studying her face. The dirt could not hide that she was young, maybe no older than 16. Her alien features were delicate, almost fragile. She looked like she had not eaten in many days. "Where is your family?" Daniel asked. His tone was firm but not unkind. She lowered her head. "They sent me away. They said I was a burden. They said I was cursed." Her words struck him like cold steel. He knew some alien cultures were cruel, abandoning the weak. Still, the pain in her voice was raw, real. Daniel stood silently. The road stretched behind him and ahead of him. He could walk away, pretend he never saw her. But something inside him did not let him move. The girl pressed her forehead to the ground. "Please, human, I will be your shadow. I will follow your steps, just give me one meal." The sky darkened as clouds gathered. A storm was building in the distance. The smell of rain mixed with dust. Daniel felt the weight of the moment. If he walked away now, the storm would finish what hunger had started. Slowly, he opened his bag and pulled out a small piece of bread. The girl's eyes widened, her whole body trembling as if she could not believe it was real. He broke the bread in half and handed her one piece. She reached out carefully, her fingers shaking. When the bread touched her hand, she clutched it as if it was treasure. Then she ate quickly, almost too quickly. Her body fought between hunger and weakness. Daniel gave her water from his flask. She drank, spilling half of it down her chin. Her breathing steadied, her golden eyes filled with tears. "Why are you helping me?" she whispered. Daniel looked at her for a long moment. "Because you asked," he said simply. The storm rumbled closer, lightning flashing across the hills. He knew he could not leave her in the open. If he walked away, guilt would follow him, forever. "Can you stand?" he asked. She tried, but her legs gave out. She had no strength left. Daniel sighed, then bent down and lifted her carefully. She weighed almost nothing. Her head rested against his shoulder, and she whispered, "Thank you. I thought I would die today." Daniel carried her down the road toward the nearest shelter. The storm broke behind them, rain pouring down in sheets. The world turned gray. But inside him, something unexpected grew, an anger at the cruelty that left her like this, and a strange, quiet promise that he would not let her starve again. The night had just begun, and with it a story that neither of them could have imagined. A human traveler and a hungry alien girl. Two strangers whose paths had crossed in the mud under storm clouds. Their journey together was only beginning. The storm outside beat hard against the wooden roof of the small hut. The rain sounded like stones falling from the sky. Daniel sat on the floor beside the fire. He had carried the alien girl there after finding her in the mud. Now she lay wrapped in an old blanket, her body shivering not from cold alone but from weakness. Daniel opened his bag again. He had only a little food left, some dried meat, a piece of bread, and a handful of roots he had traded from the last village. It was not much. He had planned it for himself, but when he looked at the girl, pale and fragile, he knew his plans had already changed. Slowly, he broke the bread in two and pushed one piece toward her. "Eat," he said. His voice was calm but firm. The girl sat up with effort. Her golden eyes glimmered in the firelight. She hesitated as if afraid he would take it back, but when she saw he was serious, she reached with trembling hands. She held the bread like something holy. Her lips moved silently before she took a small bite. The taste must have hit her like thunder, because tears rolled down her cheeks at once. She chewed quickly, swallowing as if her throat hurt. Then she covered her mouth and sobbed quietly. Daniel frowned, not used to such a reaction. "Why are you crying? It's only bread." She shook her head, her voice weak. "Not only bread. It's life, it's kindness. I thought I would never taste it again." Her words made Daniel's chest tighten. He stared into the fire, wondering what kind of people would throw out their own child. He had seen cruelty before, but this felt different. This was pure abandonment. He gave her some water. She drank slowly this time, learning from before. Her hands were still shaking, but her eyes showed a little light, like a candle fighting darkness. When she finished, Daniel handed her the dried meat. She sniffed it, curious, then bit carefully. The flavor was strange for her, but hunger made it taste rich. She ate in silence, glancing at him between bites as if she still could not believe a human would share so much. Daniel finally spoke. "What's your name?" She looked into the fire. "They used to call me Lyra," she said softly. "But names do not matter when no one wants you." "Lyra," Daniel repeated, letting the sound rest on his tongue. "It matters to me." Her lips trembled. She had not heard her name spoken with care in a long time. For a moment there was silence, broken only by the storm. Then she whispered, "Why? Why give me food? You don't even know me." Daniel leaned back, his eyes tired but sharp. "Because you asked, and because I could not walk away." Lyra hugged the blanket tighter. Her thin frame looked so small by the fire. But inside her, a storm of emotions grew. No one had ever stayed after hearing her beg. Most turned their heads, some even threw stones. But this human, this stranger, had stopped, listened, and fed her. The fire warmed the hut, but outside the rain grew louder. Daniel cut one of the roots and chewed it slowly. His own stomach was still empty. He had eaten less than her. He noticed, her eyes watching him, guilt hiding in their glow. "You didn't eat enough," she said, almost accusingly. Daniel shrugged. "I've eaten worse. You needed it more." Her throat tightened, and she looked away, ashamed of her own hunger. The bread in her stomach was heavy, but it carried a strange sweetness, not just from the food, but from the act itself. Someone choosing to give, even when they had little. The night dragged on. Lyra dozed by the fire, her breathing calmer. Daniel sat awake, listening to the storm. His mind was restless. He had no plan for tomorrow. He had not meant to take responsibility for anyone. Yet here she was, asleep under his blanket, alive because of him. At one point she stirred, whispering in her sleep, words in her alien tongue. Daniel could not understand, but her tone was fearful. He touched her shoulder gently, and she quieted again. Her face looked peaceful for the first time. The storm began to weaken, the sound of rain turning softer. Daniel closed his eyes for a moment, but his thoughts returned to her words. They said I was cursed. Who were they? Why did they abandon her? And what danger might follow if he kept her close? Still, when he looked at her curled beside the fire, he knew his choice had already been made. He could not turn away anymore. Tomorrow would bring problems, but tonight there was only the warmth of the fire, the sound of rain, and the quiet breathing of a girl who had been given a second chance. And so in that small hut under a broken sky, a human and a starving alien shared their first meal together. A simple act of kindness, but one that would change both their lives forever. The morning came gray and heavy. The storm had passed, leaving behind puddles of mud and broken branches scattered across the road. Daniel stepped out of the hut, stretching his arms. His boots sank slightly into the wet earth. The air smelled of rain and damp wood. Inside, Lyra was still curled in the blanket. Her face looked softer now, not as hollow as before. She was asleep, but not restless like the night before. She looked almost like any other young girl until Daniel remembered the truth. She had begged to eat, begged just to stay alive. Daniel packed his small bag. His food was almost gone. He had enough for one man, not two. If Lyra stayed with him, survival would be harder. Yet when he looked at her frail body, he knew leaving her behind was no choice at all. By the time she woke, he had already prepared a small piece of root for her to chew. She took it gratefully, her golden eyes meeting his. "Thank you again," she whispered. Daniel nodded. "We're moving. There's a village nearby. Maybe I can trade, maybe get more food." Her expression shifted, fear flashing across her face. "The village," she said quietly. They will not want me there." Daniel raised an eyebrow. "Why not?" "They know me," she said, pulling the blanket tighter. "They threw me out, they said I was cursed, they will hate you for bringing me." Daniel studied her carefully. "Then let them hate. I'm not leaving you in the mud again." Her lips parted as if she wanted to argue, but no words came. Her heart raced. No one had ever spoken like that for her. They walked together toward the village, Daniel steady and silent, Lyra limping beside him, weak but determined. The road was slippery, and more than once she nearly fell. Daniel caught her each time without a word. The village came into view, a cluster of small houses made of stone and clay, smoke rising from chimneys. People moved. In the streets, repairing roofs after the storm, children ran barefoot in the mud, their laughter filling the air. But the moment eyes fell on Lyra, the laughter stopped. The villagers froze, their faces hardening. Whispers spread quickly, sharp as knives. "That girl, she's back. Cursed one." Daniel felt the weight of their stares. He kept walking, guiding Lyra with a hand on her shoulder. The whispers turned into louder voices. Some people stepped back, others spat on the ground. An older man, with a long scar on his cheek, stepped forward. His voice was harsh. "Human, why do you bring her here? Do you not know what she is?" Daniel's jaw tightened. "I know she's hungry. That's all I need to know." The man sneered. "Hungry? She brings hunger. She brings storms. Bad luck follows her. We cast her out so the rest of us may live. Take her away before you poison us too." Lyra lowered her head, shame burning in her eyes. She had expected this, yet it still cut deep. Daniel's eyes grew cold, his voice low. "Storms come from the sky, not from starving children," the villagers murmured, uncomfortable. But their anger did not fade. Women pulled their children close, men stood with crossed arms. The crowd grew, their eyes hostile. One woman shouted, "If you feed her, you'll starve, human. Leave her before it's too late." Another voice added, "She's cursed. She will drag you down with her." Daniel glanced at Lyra, who clutched the blanket tightly, her shoulders trembling. She whispered, "I told you. They hate me." But Daniel stepped forward, his voice strong. "Then let them hate. I won't leave someone to die because of your fear." The crowd fell silent for a moment, shocked by his words. A human, an outsider, defending her when even her own people would not. The scarred man's face twisted. "You'll regret this, human. She will be your end." He spat on the ground and turned away. The others followed, some glaring, some muttering. Lyra stood frozen, her eyes wide with disbelief. She had expected him to walk away, to drop her hand when the crowd turned against them, but he hadn't. He had stood firm even when the whole village scorned them. As the villagers scattered, Daniel turned to her. "Come on, we'll find food somewhere else." Her voice trembled. "Why? Why do you do this? You owe me nothing. You could leave and be safe." Daniel looked at her, his expression unreadable. "Because I'm human, and humans don't throw away life so easily." For the first time in years, Lyra felt something stir. Inside her, a fragile seed of hope. She followed him out of the village, her steps lighter despite the weight of the stairs still burning her back. Behind them, the village remained full of whispers and fear. But ahead, on the open road, something new waited. Neither of them knew what dangers would come. But one thing was clear. Daniel had chosen not to let her starve, not for one day, not ever. And in that choice, their story moved forward, deeper into lands where scorn would not be the greatest threat they faced. The road out of the village was empty. The air carried the weight of silent judgment. Daniel and Lyra walked without looking back, but both could still feel the eyes burning into their backs. The whispers followed them, even after the houses were far behind. By late afternoon, the sky darkened again. Heavy clouds rolled across the horizon. Their shadows stretched over the hills like giant hands. Daniel stopped and looked up. He knew storms in this land came fast and wild. If they did not find shelter, the night would be dangerous. Lyra pulled the blanket tighter around her shoulders. The cold wind made her shiver. Her voice was low, almost fearful. "Another storm is coming, it will be worse than before." Daniel glanced at her. "You can tell?" Her golden eyes flickered with unease. "I can feel it, my people. We always could. But they said my feelings were bad luck. They said I called the storms." Daniel shook his head. "Storms are storms. People just blame what they don't understand." They walked faster. The road twisted into the woods. Branches bent low, the wind moaned between the trees. Lightning cracked in the distance and thunder rolled like a drum of war. Finally, Daniel spotted an abandoned stone tower on a hill, half ruined but still standing. He led Lyra inside just as the first heavy drops of rain fell. The air inside was damp, smelling of moss and old wood, but it was better than facing the storm outside. Daniel set down his bag and started a small fire with dry twigs he had carried. The firelight flickered against the cracked stone walls. Lyra sat near it, her face pale and tired. She watched the flames as though they were alive. "This tower. I remember it," she whispered. "When I was small, my father brought me here. He said it was a place of protection, a place of the old ones." Her words carried a weight Daniel did not yet understand. He poured her a little water and offered her the last bit of dried meat. She accepted it slowly, chewing carefully. The storm hit full force outside. Rain pounded against the tower. Wind howled through the cracks. The fire shook but held. Lightning split the sky again, for a moment lighting up the fear in Lyra's eyes. She hugged the blanket tighter. Her voice trembled. "Do you ever wonder if kindness is dangerous?" Daniel looked at her sharply. "Dangerous?" She nodded. "Yes, my own family was kind once. They fed me, held me. But when the harvest failed, they turned. They said I was cursed, that I brought ruin. They sent me away. I begged them to keep me. But they said my hunger would eat us all." Her words were broken, heavy with pain. Her eyes filled with tears she tried to hide. The storm outside seemed to echo her story, wild and merciless. Daniel listened in silence, his hands resting on his knees. He had no gentle words. He had seen desperation before, but the cruelty she described left a bitter taste in his mouth. Finally, he said, "They were wrong. Hunger comes from empty fields, not from children. You didn't bring ruin. They just wanted someone to blame." Her lips trembled. She whispered, "Then why did they all believe it? Why did no one defend me?" The fire cracked. Daniel's eyes hardened. "Because it's easier to cast out one than face the truth, but I'm not them. I won't leave you." Lyra stared at him, her chest rising and falling quickly. She wanted to believe, but fear chained her heart. "You say that now, but storms pass, kindness fades. When you are hungry tomorrow, will you still choose me?" Daniel leaned forward, his voice steady. "I already chose, Lyra. I chose when I gave you bread. I chose when I carried you from the mud, and I'll choose again tomorrow." For a long moment, she stared at him. Then her eyes softened. She lowered her head and whispered, "You don't understand. My enemies will come. They will not forgive me for living." Daniel frowned. "Enemies?" She hesitated, then spoke quietly. I was not just a burden, I was different. My bloodline carries knowledge, old songs, old power. That's why they feared me, that's why they betrayed me. If they learn I still live, they will come, and they will kill anyone beside me. The fire sputtered as thunder shook. The tower, Daniel's eyes narrowed. The storm was no longer just outside. It was inside, in her words. He knew then that feeding her was not only an act of kindness, it was a promise that would tie his fate to hers. The rain poured harder. The wind screamed through broken stones. But inside the ruined tower, Daniel sat steady, his figure lit by the fire. Lyra leaned against the wall, her voice weak but certain. If you stay, you will suffer for me. Daniel looked at her without fear. Then I'll suffer, but I won't leave you to die. Outside, lightning tore the sky. Inside, a bond was sealed stronger than the storm itself. Two strangers, a human and a hungry alien girl, sat together in a broken tower, and though the storm raged around them, neither looked away. For the first time in years, Lyra's heart dared to believe. Perhaps kindness could last. Perhaps this human would not abandon her like the rest. And as the night deepened, the storm became more than weather. It became a warning of the battles yet to come. The storm eased by morning. The ruined tower stood soaked but strong. Water dripped from cracks in the stone, and the fire had long gone cold. Daniel stretched his back, his eyes tired from keeping watch. He had not slept much. Lyra woke slowly, her face pale but calmer than the night before. She blinked at him, then whispered, "You didn't sleep?" Daniel shook his head. "Didn't want the fire to die while you rested?" Her golden eyes softened, but then shadows returned to them. "You don't have to keep doing this," she said, pulling the blanket close. "Soon your food will be gone, and you'll see what they saw in me. A burden, a curse, something that drains life from anyone who stays." Daniel knelt near her, his voice steady. "I don't care what they saw. I see someone alive, and that's reason enough." She turned, her face away, unable to meet his eyes. "You don't understand. If you keep me, they will hunt you too. My enemies don't forgive. They want me erased." Daniel crossed his arms, leaning back against the cold wall. "Then let them come. I faced worse than angry villagers," Lyra's voice broke. "Not villagers, warriors, men with blades and fire. They'll come when they hear I survived. They'll destroy you just for standing with me." The silence after her words felt heavy. The ruined tower seemed smaller, the shadows darker. Daniel stared at the broken roof where gray light poured through. His mind knew she was right. Keeping her meant risk, danger, maybe even death. He could leave her now, walk away, survive alone, but then he remembered her kneeling in the mud, begging just for one meal. He remembered her tears when she tasted bread, her trembling hands when he gave her water. And he knew the truth. He had already chosen. Daniel stood, brushing dust from his coat. "I won't leave you," he said firmly. "I chose to feed you. I chose to carry you. And I choose to stay. Whatever comes, we'll face it." Lyra looked up sharply. Her lips parted. Her chest rose and fell as if her heart couldn't keep pace. "Why?" she whispered, almost pleading. "Why throw away your safety for me?" Daniel met her gaze without flinching. "Because humans don't throw away life so easily. Not when it can be saved." Her throat tightened. Her eyes shimmered. She pressed the blanket against her chest as though holding his words inside her heart. For the first time she believed he wasn't saying it out of pity. He truly meant it. The morning dragged on as the rain slowed. Daniel shared the last of the roots, with her biting only a little for himself. She noticed and pushed half of hers back to him. "Eat," she insisted, her voice shaky but firm. "If you fall, I'll be alone again. I don't want that." Daniel accepted it without argument, a faint smile crossing his tired face. For the first time she had given something back. As they prepared to leave the tower, a new sound reached their ears. Voices, carried faintly on the wind. Lyra froze, her golden eyes wide. "They're searching already," she whispered. "I told you, my enemies will not rest." Daniel placed a steady hand on her shoulder. Then you trust me now? Her body shook, caught between fear and hope. Slowly, she nodded. Yes. I trust you. The voices grew closer, harsh and sharp. The crunch of boots on wet earth echoed from the woods. Daniel guided Lyra to the far wall, crouching low. His hand went to the small knife at his belt. Not much against trained warriors. But his grip was steady. Lyra clutched the blanket tighter. Her whisper, urgent. If they see me, they'll kill you. They'll kill us both. Daniel's eyes narrowed. Then we don't let them see, and if they do, then we fight. The voices moved past, fading into the distance. For now they were safe, but the message was clear. Danger was real, closer than ever. When silence returned, Lyra sank against the wall, her breathing heavy. You're a fool, she said softly. A stubborn, reckless fool. Daniel smirked faintly. Maybe, but you're still alive. Her laugh came out broken, half sob, half smile. In that moment, trust truly settled between them. Not forced, not begged, but chosen. Outside, the world was full of storms, enemies, and scorn. But inside that ruined tower, a fragile bond had grown into something stronger. Daniel had chosen her again despite the danger, and for the first time Lyra dared to believe she was worth choosing. The path ahead would not be easy. The hunters would return. The villagers would spread their hate. But the human had made his choice clear. He would feed her, protect her, and stand beside her no matter what. And deep inside, Lyra whispered to herself the truth she could not yet say aloud. He was no longer just feeding her body. He was feeding her hope, her will to live. And that was something she thought she had lost forever. The days that followed were uneasy. Daniel and Lyra traveled through the hills. Far from the main roads, their food was almost gone, but they hunted roots and shared water from streams. Daniel never complained, even when his stomach ached. Lyra grew a little stronger with each day. Her steps no longer dragged as heavily. Her eyes no longer always looked to the ground, but she never relaxed fully, always glancing behind them, always listening to the wind. On the fourth day, the peace broke. They were resting in a grove of twisted trees when Daniel heard it. The snap of branches, the crunch of heavy boots. He froze, his hand moving to the knife at his belt. Lyra stiffened, her golden eyes wide. "They've found me," she whispered. Her voice shook with terror. Daniel pushed her behind him just as three figures emerged from the shadows. Tall aliens armored in dark leather, blades glinting in the weak sunlight. Their faces were hard, their eyes full of hate. "Well, well," the tallest one sneered. "The cursed child lives after all, and with a human dog to guard her." Lyra trembled, pressing against Daniel's back. Her voice broke. "Rorak, he was one of my father's men." The tall alien, Rorak, grinned cruelly. "Your father is long dead, girl, and you should be too. We'll finish what your own blood was too weak to do." Daniel's grip on his knife tightened. His voice was calm but firm. "She's under my protection. You'll leave her alone." The aliens laughed, harsh and mocking. "A human? Protect her?" Rorak spat on the ground. "You don't know what she is. She carries bad luck in her veins. She will rot your bones from inside. Step aside and maybe we'll let you live." Daniel's eyes narrowed. "No. You want her. You go through me." For a moment, silence hung heavy in the grove. The wind hissed between the trees. The aliens exchanged glances, then their leader growled, "So be it, human. Your death will be quick." They moved forward, blades flashing. Daniel pushed Lyra further back, his body steady like stone. He was outnumbered, outmatched, but fear did not show on his face. The first attacker lunged. Daniel dodged to the side, his knife slicing across the alien's arm. The enemy roared in pain but did not fall. The second came from the left, forcing Daniel. "Back, run!" Daniel shouted to Lyra, but she shook her head violently. "No, I won't leave you." The fight was brutal. Daniel blocked a strike, but the force knocked him down. His knife slipped from his hand. He rolled, dirt filling his mouth. Another blade slashed, grazing his arm. Blood dripping down, Rorak raised his sword high, ready to strike the final blow. Lyra screamed, Stop! Her voice echoed, stronger than it had ever been. The air around her seemed to hum, the golden light in her eyes burning bright. The attackers hesitated, their faces twisted in sudden unease. Rorak snarled, "She still has it." The cursed blood, Lyra's, body shook, fear and power colliding inside her. She stepped forward, her voice trembling but fierce. "I am not cursed. You betrayed me. You killed my family. You left me to die. But this human fed me when none of you would. He chose me. He protects me. And I will not let you harm him." Her words carried through the grove like thunder. The air thickened, the wind circling. Even the trees seemed to groan. The warriors stepped back, unsure for the first time. Daniel rose slowly, blood on his arm, but strength in his eyes. He picked up his knife again and stood at Lyra's side. "You heard her," he said, his voice cold. "You'll have to go through both of us." The moment stretched. The enemies glared, their blades still ready. But something in Lyra's eyes made them hesitate. It was not weakness they saw now. It was fire. Rorak growled, pointing his sword. "This isn't over, girl. You can hide behind your human for now, but we will return, and next time, no one will save you." With that, the three backed away into the trees, their footsteps fading. Silence returned, broken only by Daniel's rough breathing. Lyra ran to his side, pressing her hands against his bleeding arm. "You're hurt. You fought for me." Her voice cracked with emotion. Daniel gave a tired smile. "I told you I chose, and I'll keep choosing." Tears blurred her golden eyes, but her heart burned with something new. Strength. Not only had he defended her, but she had stood with him, even if only with her words. For the first time, she did not feel like a curse. For the first time, she felt like someone worth protecting. The enemies would return, stronger, angrier. But tonight she had seen the truth. Kindness was not weakness, and a human's choice was not so easy to break. Together they left the grove, their bond tested by blood and fear, stronger than before. The grove faded behind them, but the memory of the ambush stayed heavy. Daniel's arm throbbed where the blade had cut him. Every step hurt. But he did. Not slow, Lyra walked close beside him, her face pale but her golden eyes burning with something new. Resolve. They found a cave by nightfall. The mouth was narrow, hidden by thick bushes. Daniel led her inside. Lighting a small fire with the last of his flint, the flames flickered weakly, but it was enough to keep the darkness back. Lyra sat across from him, her hands clenched in her lap. Her voice was quiet. "You fought them when you had no reason. You bled for me, and still you say you choose me. Why?" Daniel leaned against the cave wall, tired but steady. "Because you're worth saving, because you're alive, and because no one deserves to be cast aside like that." Her throat tightened. Her mind replayed the villagers' scorn, the laughter of her enemies, and then his steady hand reaching for hers. His bread, his water, his protection. "No one ever chose me before," she whispered. "Not even my family." The firelight danced across Daniel's face. His expression was calm, but his eyes were firm. "Then remember this, Lyra. I'm not them. I chose you yesterday. I choose you now. And I'll keep choosing you." Her breath caught. Tears blurred her vision. For the first time, she believed those words fully. The cave grew quiet except for the crackle of fire and the distant howl of the wind. Daniel dozed lightly. But Lyra stayed awake, watching him. She thought of the bread he had broken, the storm they had faced together, the blades that had nearly taken his life. Slowly, she stood and walked to him. Her thin fingers brushed his arm where the wound was. She whispered softly, "You gave me food when I had nothing. You gave me hope when I thought I was cursed. I swore to serve anyone who fed me, but with you, it's not servitude, it's something else." Daniel stirred but did not open his eyes. His breathing steady, his trust in her complete. Lyra knelt beside him, her voice trembling but full of strength. "You didn't just feed me for one night. You fed me forever, and because of that, I will stay by you forever. Not as a servant, but as someone who belongs to you." Her words hung in the air like a vow, stronger than the walls of the cave. The next morning, sunlight broke through the clouds, soft and golden. Daniel woke to find Lyra sitting at the cave's mouth, her hair shining in the light. She turned to him, her face no longer only weak or fearful but filled with quiet determination. "They'll come again," she said. "They won't stop until I'm gone." Daniel tied his boots and tightened his coat. "Then let them come, they'll find I'm not so easy to push aside." Lyra's lips curved into a faint smile. She rose and stood beside him, no longer hiding in blankets or lowering her head in shame. She stood tall, her shoulders straight. "If you will fight for me, then I will fight too." Her words surprised him, but he saw truth in her eyes. She was no longer the starving girl in the mud. She was someone reborn, fed not only by bread but by trust. They left the cave together, stepping onto the path that stretched into the unknown. The air was fresh after the storm. Birds sang in the distance, but beneath the peace was a sense of coming battles. As they walked, Daniel felt her hand slip into his, tentative but firm. He looked at her and saw not just a girl saved from hunger, but a companion who had chosen him in return. The road ahead was dangerous. The enemies would return stronger. The villagers would still whisper and spit. But none of it mattered now, because in that simple act of kindness, a shared meal, something greater had been forged. Lyra looked at him, her golden eyes steady. "You fed me once and saved my life, but you've also fed my spirit. I will never forget that, Daniel. From now on, wherever you go, I will walk with you, forever." Daniel gave a small nod, a rare smile touching his lips. Forever then, the sun rose higher, lighting the hills before them. Two figures walked side by side, a human traveler and the alien girl who had once been thrown away. They were bound not by blood, not by duty, but by choice, and as their shadows stretched long on the path, one truth remained clear. She had asked to be fed until he was full, but Daniel had chosen to feed her forever.